Welcome back, guys. Ghetto Rig episode 233. We have a special guest for you. But before I introduce him, quickly, my name is Jay. All the way to my right hand side is my co host, Eddie. And behind the camera, we have the Mickey, best man in the business when it comes to doing podcasts. However, quick shout out to our sponsors, UFC Gym Largo in St. Petersburg, also Vitality 1 and 2. I don't want to keep you guys holding, and I want to introduce our host, our guest. Um, is probably he's probably one of the best, if not the best, grappler in the world as it stands right now, and we're so lucky to have him. Yuri Simões, thanks for coming into our podcast. The man that traveled everywhere, seen everything, done everything, has accomplished things that everybody dreams about, and he decided to come on our small, tiny, little neighborhood podcast. Man, thank you very much for that. Let's do some claps, Miggy. Yeah. So Yuri, you recently came to Florida, but I think everyone kind of talks about Yuri and stuff like that. But we want kind of want to know, how did Yuri start? Where did Yuri start? Like, how did the story begin?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Jay, Eddie.
It's our
It's a
honor for
pleasure
sure.
to be here with you guys. And how I started in Jiu Jitsu, I think my dad was a big influence in my life when it comes to my career in Jiu Jitsu. He was just doing it as a hobbyist, but seeing him coming from work and like tired and going to so motivated to this train, I was like, what is it there? What makes him want to train after a long day of work? And I was so young, but I was already wondering, and like I would go.
How old were you at that time?
I was when my dad started training. I was 4 years old. I remember 3 or 4 years old, very young, and I remember like I would like sometimes go with him. He would take private classes, and then I would sleep on the mats. They would wake me up. I had no idea that one day that would be my life. Like that would be my job and my whole life. So uh, later on, like when I was about 7 years old, I watched the Hicks and Gracie documentary Choke, and I think I must be the kid that watched that the most. I probably watched that documentary over 20 times, and I was like, I want to be like that guy. So that was when I started actually going to a gym when I was about 7, 8 years old. I
At that
started
time,
going
your
to a
dad
gym.
was already blue belt,
Yeah,
purple belt, something like
yeah,
that.
something like that. We started. I started learning some basic like techniques at my house. So he got some mats home, and like he would have his co-workers and friends, my uncles. So they would train in the Saturday and stuff, and then I would learn like some basic stuff like Americana, rear naked choke, and I would just play with them. I was the only kid among them, but that's when I was started to learn like some basic techniques. I would play with my dad, like also here and there, like some jiu-jitsu stuff, but I only really got into the gym when I was like 8 or 9 years old, I think, and never stopped since then. And then everything I've done before, every sport that I've done before, jiu-jitsu, I stopped. I did capoeira, I stopped. I did like only 2 months of that. Did taekwondo, I stopped. I did soccer. I was actually a decent goalkeeper. I stopped. I swam. I did water polo. Nothing like I would like. The longest I would stay would probably be like 2 years on any other modality. But jiu-jitsu is the only thing that got me stuck into it. Like I kept doing, and eventually I start evolving and getting better. It was definitely not easy. Like I lost my first match on my first 11 or 12 tournaments. I lost on the first match, so I had to overcome a lot of stuff to eventually start winning and doing good and start being
And that's
recognized.
that's when you were still a kid, right? Like you're going through your belts, the yellow, the
Yeah,
orange, the all the
yeah.
How
all the
old were
stuff.
you for your first competition?
So I signed up for my first competition. I think it was 9 or 10, but then like on my first like 3 or 4 competition, I didn't even get a match because I was so fat as a kid. There was nobody on my weight class. First, I was really skinny. I was really, really skinny. And my mom started giving me some kind of vitamin, and then that backfired. I got really fat, and I was like the heaviest kid. So there would never be a kid on my weight class. And then
Yeah.
finally, when I started competing, I got like first tournament. I remember like I had changed gyms. Like I used to train. Do you remember this gi Krugans? Old school gi. It's
Can you
like,
pull it up, Miggy?
yeah, it's like one of the first BJJ gis like from like the 90s. So the owner from Krugans, his name is Viking. He had a gym. I used to train there, but I ended up like within a year I moved to my original coach Maurição, which was my coach from yellow all the way to blue belt, and unfortunately he passed away.
Oh
But
shit.
he was uh, he was a person who I was training, like was a big influence for me. So when I moved to the other gym, my I actually got to do my first ever competition match, and then I went against a kid from the gym that I used to train
Oh
with, and
shit.
he demolished me. And I was like so fucking sad after I lost, but I was like, it's like I had a point to prove. I was like, now I have to win. And like, dude, it wasn't like all the way until I was 16 when I won my first match. All the way, like there were like I don't know 10, 11, maybe 12 tournaments that I lost in the
At
first
blue
round.
belt level.
From yellow belt all the way through juvenile blue belt. And then I won my first tournament. It was a nogi tournament. So I won a nogi tournament. It was like 16-year-old and 17-year-old. I was 16 at the time. I fought with people that were a little bit older than me, and I won. I was like, oh, I did good. I won. And then right next to it, like I got the confidence and then started understanding points, because would happen a lot is I was not really like aware of the point system of the rules. So I would get played with the rules. I would like get scored, and I wasn't really like sure of how to compete or try to look for submissions. People would just defend, score, and win, and then I figured that out. And because I was so focused on submission, like my first year there, started winning. Almost every victory was by submission, because that was like I wasn't really like aware about points yet. I just started doing better because I was competing so much that I didn't feel such a heavy adrenaline anymore, so much pressure, and then I started doing better. As I won the first tournament, I got the confidence. I went for the state tournament. I won. I won state tournament again, division absolute, and then I won South Brazilian. I remember like South Brazilian tournament, and then there was Brazilian nationals, which back then was like one of the biggest tournaments after World Championship, and then I won. I
How old
actually,
were you at that time?
so I was 16 to 17. Yeah, so that was when I won Brazilian nationals. But I fought my weight class. I lost. So I was winning everything. Right, like I started winning. Like for the 8 months, I was winning everything. That's like after the 11 tournaments that I lost. So I started winning everything, and then Brazilian nationals. I was so confident that I was gonna win. There, like I went to, how you say, like I was not so focused, maybe, and then I remember losing, and then I look at to my parents, and my parents always supported me. Like I have nothing, I've only gratitude. If it wasn't for their support, I'd probably not be doing what I do now. So they really always encouraged me. But like because I could do so much better. I look to my parents after I lost the match in Brazil National. My mom is like, "You did shit. You should be embarrassed of yourself." I was like, "Oh, that sucks."
We've
I
been
was
paying
looking
all
for a
this
hug or
money.
something like that. And then that was probably the night that I sleep the earliest in my life. Sleep so early, and then the very next day, I went to the tournament and warm up, I did everything right, and then I had 5 matches. My first match was against Bochecha, so I won the entire 5 matches, and then I won the absolute Brazilian national, and then like that same year I won Worlds and World Cup 4 days back to back. Division I won, then absolute World Cup. Then I traveled to São Paulo for the Worlds. Then I won division and absolute like 4 days in a row. I had like 13 matches, and I was awarded in Rio the best juvenile for the year. Like from like not winning anything to start winning everything, And then
Let me ask you this, because I've met you. I met you actually. I've spent a lot of time with you, so I kind of like to think I kind of know what kind of a person you are. And I didn't spend a lot of time with Chesha, but whatever amount of time I spent with Chesha, he also is a very nice guy. So I'm sure like there's never any kind of animosity outside of BJJ's. But how do you overcome that, where you have to go against friends or against somebody that
well,
you
when
might even like or consider as a friend?
yeah, this is a good question. So with Buchecha, at that time that we competed as a juvenile, we were not really friends. I actually probably just met him on that tournament. And then after that, he came to Brazil, and then we had a match on Purple Belt where we were the same team. We were supposed to close out the tournament, and we ended up competing against each other in the final. And then we closed out the absolutes. And then we were not the same team again in the brown belt. We went against each other again. So in the purple belt, he beat me by. I beat in the blue belt. I beat him in the blue belt. And then in purple belt, we were the same team. We ended up competing. He beat me by like, I think like 6-2 on the score. And then on the brown belt, we were already like a way different weight class. He became a lot bigger, so it was like an absolute. So we were like drawing, and in the last minute he scored like 2 points on me. Then after that we really started training together a lot. So from the end of my brown belt until my first 2-3 years in the black belt, I trained a lot with him. Then we really got to become more friends.
So
and
you're
stuff.
talking about being 19 at this point, 19 years old.
When
or
we
so.
fought the last time, I was like 19. Yeah.
So it was like technically like the prime up and coming.
Yeah.
Has
Yeah,
the
yeah.
absolute division been something that's been part of like traditional tournaments for a long? Like how long has that been a thing? Has it always been a thing in jiu-jitsu tournaments? The absolute division?
I think so because it's like in jiu-jitsu, that's one of the, maybe I'm wrong, but it's probably the only martial art or one of the few martial arts that you could see like a very light guy beating
Right.
a very big guy. You know, there are many
Right.
videos like that. I think like if you did that on boxing, you
No, there's no.
risk
Yeah,
of
you can't do.
murder.
You
Yeah,
can't do
you know.
absolute division.
Yeah, no, because I don't know of any other competition. Even when I was younger, competing in sambo, we never had absolute division. You kind of fought
Yeah.
your own.
My
Judo
question
doesn't
is
have
like,
that.
I understand why, right? For sure, we could see like the little guys winning. That is something that's not rare
Uncommon,
in
yeah.
jiu-jitsu, right? But my question is it something that's been a part of jiu-jitsu since like the beginning of tournaments, like even before the '90s when they were doing tournaments in Brazil?
I think so.
Yeah?
I think like at least on the 80s, I could be wrong, but I think at least on the 80s, I think there was a point where there was not even weight class. People would just compete
Go
in the
and
beginning.
compete,
They would
yeah.
just go like. There
So
were
it was even absolute before weight classes.
yeah,
more like
I mean, if you look at
Gotcha.
Helio Gracie
Yeah,
when
that
he
was what I
fought,
was saying,
he
yeah.
fought Kimura.
He did
They
Gracie
were
was like
like
120, 130 pounds then.
yeah, and Kimura was like 200 something pounds.
Damn.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, way before the 80s. You know, because
Okay.
before there was no, I think, even like
Even
weight
classes.
class.
So it was all just absolute.
yeah,
basically.
Because it
like
wasn't
the best
organized.
guys versus the best guys.
right.
And then they started making weight class, but because jiu-jitsu never really like you never needed to be the heavy guy to win.
Right.
Then I think they probably already. I'm guessing they probably already started off with the
The
absolute
absolute.
division because of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense then.
So you were brown 19, and then when did you get your black belt?
I got my black belt with 21 years old. I was 21.
And but you were still competing throughout the whole thing.
Throughout, like, you mean like,
Between brown belt to black belt and then
Oh, yeah.
beyond.
I competed,
How many competitions would you do a year, would you say, on average?
I think from like blue belt through brown belt, are per average, like, as juvenile, I competed a lot. I think I did like 16 to 18 tournaments as a juvenile.
Shit, that's at least
In
one
a
a month.
year. Yeah, in a year, something like that. And then purple belt, I competed less, but still like, I don't know, like at least 8-9 tournaments in a year. And then I stayed like 2 years in the purple belt. You know, at least 6 tournaments for sure. You know, but once I started doing better, first I was just competing everything, getting confidence, getting rhythm, and then you win the first Brazilian nationals, the first worlds. I won Europeans in the purple belt, in the blue belt. Sorry. Those are the main tournaments. You know, once you win the main tournaments in one belt and you move to the next belt, you already have some confidence, so you can be more selective. So you still need to level up to catch up because you might be going against people that are in the purple belt for a year, 2 years. So
They're already at that end of a brown belt
yeah,
almost.
they're more mature in that belt. So you need that experience. But basically, the higher rank I was, the more selective I started being with the tournaments. And, you know, that resulted on me competing less. But I would say from blue through my first 5 years of black belt, I think my minimum I would do is like 7-8 tournaments a year. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And that's like you're always in a competition mode, so you never really have a downtime, right? Like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
always doing a camp, always
Yeah, yeah.
always.
Yeah.
That has
Up
to
to
be,
like 2021, like in 2021, I was already like in 2021 I was 10 years already in the black belt. I competed 9 times. In 9 times one time being a tournament of 3 matches, and others were like super matches. Yeah, I think it was 9 times or something like that. Maybe I'm a little bit
But
wrong.
how did the whole the beer virus affect all the competitions and everything? Because I mean, this was your bread and butter, right? Like this is how I'm sure this is how you kind of made money and things like that, because you had to keep your name up there and things like that. So how did that work during the pandemic?
Uh, that was tough times because during the pandemic, that was when. So I had a work visa or athlete visa, something like that, P1, and then during the when the pandemic came, I was in the process to get my green card, and so my visa was expiring. So, but like I was legal because my green card was already past the stage where it was legal, but I could not make money in the U.S. But also, I was coming from ACL surgery, like that happened right before the pandemic happened. So it was like pandemic. It was me not being able to train. Also, like at the time, uh, I couldn't get any money on my account because until I actually received the green card on those first 7 months was really rough. So for me, um, I was able to continue to train. Like once I started like recovering from my ACL, I was able to continue to train, but I had to skip like super matches and stuff until I actually got my green card. So like I think until like maybe like November 2020, that's when I fought one championship. I wasn't fighting anything, but it helped me to develop my jiu-jitsu because me and the crew that I was training with, we would still like find a place to train
Mm.
and stuff like that. Even though like everything was closed, we were still training.
What has been your favorite maybe organization or tournament to fight under? Right, so you I mean you fought all around the world, right, and under multiple promotions or tournaments, or as you'd say, what has been your favorite experience between them all? From ADCC to one to everything.
I've there are like a lot of good experiences on most of those high level tournaments,
Right.
and it's really cool to see where jiu-jitsu is going, where it was when I was young and where it is now, and it's
Yeah.
just growing. It's really amazing. But I think like as far as like performing well, I'll probably say ADCC and IBJJF tournaments were the ones, but also probably because those were the ones that I was doing like a 2 3 months hard camp to compete. A lot of
Yeah.
the super matches sometimes like I was like living paycheck by paycheck. So I'd go and I would just like sometimes show up to fight just for the money, and I was like injured. I was not training,
Right.
or teaching class, eating junk food or whatever. It's just a super match. I've been doing this my whole life. I cannot go out there
Yeah.
and do well. But like whenever it was a title that mattered,
Mm-hmm.
I always prepare very well. So maybe it has more to do with that than the rule
Okay.
set itself. You know what I
I
mean?
got you. I got you.
So who would you say one of the, because you were on the Coyotera and then Ricardo Vieira, like very very big names, right? Who would you say was the most influential? It doesn't have to be them. It could be somebody else. But who do you think was the most influential coach that you had and why?
I had three coaches, so three masters. The Maurição, he was the first one. I don't know if you guys know Hunter Fightwear. That was the sponsor. They sponsored Mark Kerr back then. Uh, a lot of like high level pride fighters at the time. They were sponsored by Hunter. It was the first fight where, and Maurição was the owner of the fight where he was my
Mm.
coach. He was a black belt on the Hickson Gracie. He was like, you know, as a coach, the first big influence for me. Then I went to Ricardo Vieira after he passed away. Well, when I was training, Maurição was also training Silvio Bering. I don't know if you know Bering family. They're also very traditional, like from this around the same time as the Gracie family. In fact, I think they learned from the Gracies themselves. So it was like Maurição and Silvio, but I was always more training with Maurição. And when he passed away, my brothers were already training with Ricardo Vieira. So I went to Ricardo Vieira in Copacabana and I was training with him from blue through black belt, and that's where I got my competition game.
But you're not from Copacabana yourself,
No,
right?
I would take like two buses to get to Copacabana. It was like, and during that time they were building the Olympic centers and the Pan Am Center.
Shit,
So
so
it
you
was like,
every day you would take two buses there and two
bro,
buses back.
to go when I was from when I was 16 until I was 19, there was buildings all over Rio because of the Olympics and the Pan Am Games. So it would take sometimes 2.5 hours to get there. Sometimes to come back, it would take sometimes 3.5 hours because of traffic, and it would take
Yeah.
two buses. So every day I was going to train.
So jujitsu was really your life. Like there was no really school involved in this. There was none of that.
My
stuff.
mom wanted me to go to school. I almost went to either biology or physical education, but I knew that I just knew inside me that I would be able to make it with jiu-jitsu. I don't know how to explain, but I just knew that was gonna happen. And then both my parents were supportive, but my mom was more like concerned. She wanted me to get a degree and stuff. And my dad is like, no, he got it. Even though at the time I was still not doing well. Like I said, I was losing a lot of the tournaments. My dad had faith that I could do it, and they were like helping me and stuff. And then next thing you know, I was winning the main tournaments. I started like teaching class here, teaching class there, surviving, traveling, winning bigger tournaments, and started to make a living slowly out of this.
So when did because you had a little tiny stint, was it with Pride that you kind of transitioned from jiu-jitsu to MMA there?
Or one.
For
One
one was
yeah.
one, right?
That was when I actually was gonna go to MMA in 2016. I started training at AKA, and then I had a ACL injury that year. When I was fighting EBI, I fought with Gary Tonon and I tore my ACL. I beat him, but I tore my ACL. And I didn't even go to the doctor, so I was just like, I had like all these fights. I was like, I need to get this money, I need to make this cash. So I'm not even gonna get an MRI and find out what's happening. I'm just gonna fight. So by the end of the year, I went to the doctor, and he told me, dude, your ACL is completely off. He drained like 3 syringes of fluid from my knee, and it was like 2 days before Worlds No Gi. I was like, bro, you could have told me that after the No Gi Worlds, just lied to me. So he went and he wrapped my knee up. He put some kinesio tape. I put the knee pad on both knees. I went and I was able to win Division Absolute. Few weeks after that, now that was when I was training already for MMA. And my plan was like, okay, I'll finish off this year competing jiu-jitsu. I was already training MMA. Maybe like this was towards the end of 2016. I was like, maybe early 2017, I can start to look for a fight. At that point, I was already training almost a year MMA. And then I won the Nogi Worlds, but what was keeping my knee healthy enough to train was that I was lifting constantly. And after winning the Nogi Worlds, I stopped lifting for 2 weeks. And when you have a torn ligament, you atrophy very quick. So my leg was like very like getting skinny, right? It was very loose. So I went to sparring at AKA. I remember I was going with John Fitch, and he did like a very light low kick on me. My knee locked up, and that was it. I had to go to Brazil, and then like I finally had to get an actual MRI, and my knee was a mess, and I had to get a surgery. So by the time I came back recovering, it was almost ADCC 2017, and at that point I already had one ADCC edition, and I had like my sponsor and stuff, so I had pressure to compete because I was more making money with jiu-jitsu, so it was hard for me to say like, oh, I'm just gonna leave all of these that I'm making here to go to MMA. I needed to be realistic too, so
right.
I kind of went back, focused on ADCC. So I recovered from my ACL. I fought Travis Stevens, judo, silver medalist. I won like a local tournament, and then I went to ADCC like 7 months later after my surgery, and I was able to win. And then that pushed me off from MMA for like a couple years, and then I only went back after my other knee surgery in 2020. I messed up my knee. I was like, oh, I screwed jiu-jitsu. I was so I was so angry because of the way that it happened in the tournament at the time. It was kind of like a little bit of a referee's fault, but I was a little bit upset, and I was like, oh, screw jiu-jitsu, and I was wanting to do MMA, so I went to try MMA, and I went to one championship around 2020, which I still have unsolved business in MMA. I want to go back to it. Yeah, as soon as my shoulder gets better, that's where I'm going.
What did you find the most difficult transitioning between jiu-jitsu and MMA? Like, did you have any striking experience before going and dedicating your time to MMA?
Not competing, but I trained striking like growing up. Like as a kid, I did like 1 year Muay Thai, and then I have a very good Croatian friend, Boyan. When he was from my same jiu-jitsu team, and he had many Muay Thai fights. When he would come to Rio, I would work some Muay Thai with him. So I grew up I wasn't training striking to compete in striking, but
Right.
it was nothing like
It wasn't foreign
no,
necessarily.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. I had some experience with it, and like I said, in 2016, I had a whole year where I trained striking again. I even started a little bit earlier than that, I think, with boxing and Muay Thai and whatnot. And
Is that what you found to be the most difficult to go moving over to MMA? Was adapting the striking, or
I
was there
think
another
that's
aspect?
not the striking. What is hard about MMA is putting everything together,
Yeah.
right? Because you can learn striking and then you're not thinking about striking, and then you go against a D1 wrestler, and then he will take you down in the end of the round. He's not really trying to do jiu-jitsu, but he'll play by the rule. He'll take you down just enough time that he win the round,
Right.
and he puts you on the ground, but you don't have enough time to work on the ground with him.
Yeah.
And like that can get tricky, like how to mix the takedown defense with the striking, with the takedown offense.
You
like
see that a lot.
distance.
That's something that some of the best do, is that they know how to, like, in a what looks like a grappling exchange, knowing when and where to throw strikes, or
Yeah.
the vice versa as well. You see
Like
that.
I do with you on the UFC fight.
Yeah, yeah. But that happens a lot with grapplers in MMA. They get like a tunnel vision. The moment they start like a grappling exchange, that's all they want to do is grapple. They don't
Yeah.
throw a single strike, even
Yeah.
when they're in dominant positions or whatever it is. The perfect position to throw strikes or knees and clenches and stuff like that. That's something that the best always have adapted to, is mixing everything constantly, being a mixed martial
I
artist.
think it comes down to muscle memory.
Yeah.
Like someone that is a grappler,
Yeah,
his
I
muscle
agree.
memory is always to grapple.
Mhm.
Someone that is a striker, he's like he's used to letting go of the arm. He's not used to having that grappling strength, that grappling motion, and like when you switch that fast, you're going for a strike, and then you have to grapple.
You're just literally flipping
like
a
your
switch to
brain-
one or the
yeah.
other. You can't blend it.
Exactly, especially if you're not thinking like for example, the striker is thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna jab him here, duck, I'm gonna catch him with something, and then like first jab, the guy clinches on him. Now he's
Yeah.
plan like he has to go to plan B.
That's why. That's one thing. It's so surprising to see, like, when you see the classic striker versus a grappler, right?
Yeah.
And they're going through exchanges, and then the striker pulls a takedown. It's always so wow, because it's like, man, it was always there, but they finally decided to do it, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Who was it? Like Leon Edwards and Kobe, right? Like, you didn't think Leon was gonna try and take Kobe down.
I didn't watch that fight, to be honest.
No?
But
He took him down on multiple occasions.
and exactly because he was distracted with the strikes, right?
Yeah.
Would you think that would happen in a wrestling
Oh
match?
no, never.
Never. Well, Rodolfo Vieira, I don't know if you watch his
No.
match when he got submitted, but that's one of the greatest grapplers. He's also a good friend of mine. Greatest jiu-jitsu guys of all time. And he got submitted in the UFC. I always tell people are like, oh, that guy's grappling is good. Yeah, props to the guy. He won the match, and he submitted him. But he was hurting him standing.
Right.
And that was back when Rodolfo was still like primarily just like a grappler.
Yeah.
And he was trying to find him and grab him, and he was getting caught, and he was hurt. So when he was on the ground, he was still getting hurt. So he was not even thinking about grappling.
Right.
And then the other dude capitalized. So
Yeah.
if I say, if the referee were to say once he fell down, I think he got knocked down. Once he fell down, before the submission happened, if the referee would say no more strikes, just grappling, I doubt he would get submitted. He would like go back to that mode. But because he was like on survival mode, he was like, I cannot.
Yeah, the grappling switch was off, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the guy capitalized, which was very smart. But that counts. So that's probably the same thing that happened with Kobe Compton.
That reminds me of what you said as well about. I remember one day we had a conversation about Charles, and you were saying he's an opportunistic grappler. And when you said that, and I never thought about it that way, but I saw it kind of like rewinded all his fights, and it's like, absolutely right. He's gonna crack you and then submit you, kind of thing. It's not like he's gonna engage the takedown instantly without throwing punches and stuff like that.
Notice, for example, Damian Maia, right? When he's fighting, people right away don't want to let him go to the ground. They're not worried about his strikes.
Yeah, not at all.
They're not.
They're expecting a submission from Damian
They're
Maia.
expecting a submission. So from the get-go, their only goal is do not let this guy get close to me.
Right.
But with Charles, he's yes, they know that he's a grappler, but at the same time, like, and I think the more subs he gets, the more people get like, okay, I can't let him get close.
Yeah.
But I think like a lot of it is like, they're getting on like they're getting on the strike and they get cracked, and then like he gets tied to them, and he's legit. He's good on
Mm-hmm.
the ground. I would say he's nowhere near Damian Maya level. He's nowhere near that kind of level of grappling, but he's legit. He's a legit black belt. He's solid, solid as hell. And of course, if he cracks you, he gets you distracted. Even higher chance for him to get the submission, right? So
Right.
that's why I think he's an opportunistic grappler, like I said.
So
Yeah.
what do you think is happening right now with Marab? Because Marab's been taking people down, and Marab is known for taking down and controlling. He's not really known for submissions. He's not really known for knockouts
I think
like
this
that.
this last fight he broke the record. He broke GSP's record for the most takedowns in UFC history. Because GSP had 90, and I think with this last fight against Umar, he has 92 now. 92
That's
takedowns.
impressive.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. I didn't watch a lot of Merab. That sounds bad. I didn't watch a lot of his fights, but I watch a lot of his highlights and
Yeah.
videos, and obviously I know who he is. And I've watched a lot of. I've watched some highlights of him doing judo back in the day. I know he's a sambo world champion. So those are all modalities. I'm sure he wrestled too in competition, and those are all like takedown modalities, you know. And he's done that in like Russia and Georgia and all those places. Armenia, they have a lot of wrestling and grappling
Yeah, they
in
do.
their tradition. So I think it's something that comes natural to him. He has a background at a high level on modalities that revolve like takedown games. So
Grappling.
he's already ahead, you know.
Yeah.
And then he's able to mix it really well. The takedown. I think maybe sambo guys can do combat sambo guys can do that even better than wrestlers because they're used to striking and setting up takedowns. Where wrestlers they're not. Sometimes some wrestlers will get caught, they'll get hit on the head and they'll forget where like everything. You know, sambo guys are used to do the grappling with some striking, so I think that gives him an advantage. So I think he knows really well. He knows really deep. He has really deep knowledge about wrestling, takedown like techniques, and he's very well. He knows really well how to mix the striking, the level
How to
change with the
make sure that
takedown,
sets up.
clinch, all
Yeah.
of that.
Do,
Yeah.
do you think people letting him, because I don't want to say they're letting him get close, but at the same time they're not really afraid of it. Why? Because do you think it's like that because he's not really submitting anybody, or he's not like they feel like there's no danger, he's gonna take me down, he's gonna try to control me, and it's my job is just to
No,
get
I
out.
think he probably is really hard to. It's
Just to
really hard
stop.
to stop his takedowns.
Yeah.
I would guess that.
I think it's about the relentlessness of one
Yeah,
after
yeah,
the
he's like
other, after the other, after the other. It's like
Yeah.
you can try and take him down and sprawl and defend and back up, and guess what? The moment he gets within range again, he'll try again and he'll try again and he'll try again. And he's just simply proven that he's gonna have more cardio than you.
Yeah, also like
So-
about the submission stuff that Jay mentioned. One thing too is like, and I felt that if you're going to MMA and you take someone down and you just focus on submission, you're getting tired because now the guy has to just focus. There's no points, there are no jiu-jitsu score. All he has to worry about is I'm not getting tapped.
Mm-hmm.
It's 5 minutes. That's athleticism in MMA counts a lot more. So these guys are very well conditioned. They're gonna explode. You're gonna use all their physicality just to not get tapped. Nowadays everybody has at least a good basic knowledge on every modality. So if you're just going for submission, sometimes you get tired. So I think like him taking people down, scoring, punching is a way for him to also drain them, right? People are behind, they're getting tired. He stays ahead, and it's a safe win, And if
Yeah.
the submission is there, I'm sure he's gonna get it. But if a win is a win, So
Yeah. It's more of the smash style versus trying to submit. Yeah, he's just gonna take you down and smash.
exactly.
So you've been throughout the life competing and then going from one competition to another one, and the stakes been going up, right? Like at first it was the nationals, Brazil, then the European, the worlds, the ADCC. Like I'm sure like you're okay. So okay, I'm doing the nationals. I've done this before, so I'm kind of comfortable. So how did you break that barrier? It's like, oh shit, okay, now I'm going to worlds. So it's a different game now. So how did you go past that mental?
I think it's good. Like that's a good. It's good that you say that because I always tell that to students, like to my students, I say, there sometimes you come across people, they're like, I'm gonna be a world champion. I always believe like on everybody when they say that, I want to be the person who support their dream, but you will not be a world champion for sure if you start from not competing at all to competing in the worlds. Because when you go to the worlds, you're competing against guys that are doing that all year long. So you have to build up your technique, but also your confidence, your rhythm, and you need to be competing, like growing and like winning the state tournament, and you win the maybe like a South tournament, bunch of states. Then you win the national tournament. Then you start, then you're getting more skilled guys. Then when you get to the national tournament, to Pan Am's, Europeans, those kind of competition, you're competing against the guys that are competing at Worlds. So you're competing against your main opponents already. So you're already getting a feeling of the high level. So now you're in tune with that, So you're not going to go to Worlds and you're going from not competing at all to competing with the best guys on your bracket. So I think it's a process, and you have to build up just like your technique, just like your conditioning, also your rhythm, your confidence. They have to be built as well.
Okay.
So I have a question. What do you think has been the most entertaining rule set that jiu-jitsu has put out? And what I mean by that is for the
public.
Yes, for the public, right? So jiu-jitsu is not a very to watch. We all know
it's not a sexy sport.
It's not a sexy sport, right?
It's only sexy for somebody that understands it.
And even when you understand it, there's a lot of standstills and a lot of stalling going on, and that makes it not so entertaining. What has been the rule set that you've seen that helps that the most be entertaining? Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't become entertaining for the public, for the masses, there's not going to be money.
Okay, but then I have a question also about that. Do you think golf is entertaining?
See, that's actually a very good point.
Golf is not entertaining.
I respect that point.
And cricket?
That's different. There's more explosive action.
No, bro,
Yes,
I know what he's talking about. Baseball.
I know,
for me is
what you're saying. But
baseball for me is a snooze fest, bro.
I want to talk about sports and start
I get what you're saying.
No,
I get what you're
I
saying.
think with golf is there's a lot of rich uncles that have too much time on their hand, and they know they have to be active to do something, but at the same time they want to break their back, but they want to say that they did something. So golf is good. I think golf is more for people that are doing business deals. I don't really think at those higher levels you really go play.
Competition wise, they make money.
Yeah.
To his point, he said there will be no money if there is no entertaining. Well, I think no matter how boring of a jiu-jitsu match you're gonna find, it's gonna be 10 times more entertaining than golf. Honestly,
I agree.
With all due respect.
Or baseball. Or
with all due
baseball.
respect. Okay, thank God you said that.
Bro, baseball is a snooze fest for me. I
Well,
can't deal with it.
I don't know if I can necessarily agree with baseball, because baseball has a lot different of like I mentioned earlier, it's more of explosive moments, right? You can get that more often, right? In jiu-jitsu, you have a lot of times where when you have these high level guys like you going against the other high level guys, sometimes you guys almost neutralize each other in certain positions, and that becomes boring as a viewer.
Telespectator for the viewer, yeah. Well,
Maybe
yes,
it's the popularity.
I still think that as far as physical effort and explosiveness, I think we still explode even a boring match more than a baseball player.
I agree. Actually doing it physically, but for the viewer.
But I see what you're saying. But the thing is also lack of understanding of the rules. I think a lot
That's
of the times people there watch, they just want to, I want to watch someone getting fucked up.
Yeah.
And
versus us, we can see a clean pass and be like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah,
they don't
pass or understanding the score, knowing what is the strategy that the guy is playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people say that Mayweather fights are boring, but a true boxing lover
understands.
He likes and appreciates his counter strategies, style of countering punches and defense. So it depends how in tune the public is with the rule
viewer.
as well.
I agree.
And I think that's a problem also, people are not so educated about the rule side and stuff. But that being said, of course there are tournaments that also bring more attention from the people. For example, one tournament that I fought 2 times for combat jiu-jitsu. Well, that's entertaining because there's slaps starting from there. And then EBI, which is kind of the same rules of combat jiu-jitsu without the slaps.
Right.
I think those are very entertaining for people because, well, first of all, there are no points, so people don't have to figure out the whole
Positioning is more
rules and
about
everything.
submission. Yeah.
Yes, and then it's like if you don't submit on the regulation time, you start either on the back or on the arm, which is already even if there's no sub on the overtime, there's a lot more action. Now you
Yes.
see people getting out of trouble. Now my problem with it is for you to get in the back and in the arm in jiu-jitsu, you have to earn that position. When in a fight, you're just gonna miraculously appear on the arm.
Right.
So as a fighter or as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, I don't see the point on that.
Like the sport sense. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
As a sport.
From the philosophy, like
Uh-huh.
you're thinking that, like, okay, philosophically wise, or like from like thinking about the foundation.
Yeah, like we're here, like
Yeah.
in the sports sense, it's like we're here to see who's better,
Who's better? Yeah.
right?
And
that doesn't play towards that.
yeah, and you don't, and you know what happens is like people say, oh, you can stall on IBJJF, you can stall on ADCC. Yes, you can also play by the rules on EBI because I've seen it when I was there. For example, regulation time. I'm a lot better than my opponent, right? That happened on my first match when I fought EBI, the 2016. I was all over the guy. If there were points, I would probably score 40 points on the guy, a lot of points. What happened was immediately when he saw that I was higher level than him, he was just hiding his limbs and surviving. Why? He wanted to save energy to go to the overtime. So in the overtime, if you guys don't know, it's like the overtime of 3 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then if nobody submits nobody in those 3 rounds, whoever has most control. So if I'm on the back, nobody, like say I go on the back on the 3 rounds, I choose to go on the back, and then the guy either choose the arm or on the back of me. I escape quicker than him, and I have more time controlling him on the back. I win. So what happened is on the regulation time when someone figure out, oh no, this guy's higher level, he's gonna tap me. He's just saving his energy, so in the overtime he can escape quicker.
Yeah.
So that also
control
defeats
for
the
longer.
whole purpose of like
Yeah.
the guy is also playing by the rules. You
Yeah,
know?
I
And
get
at
what
the
you're
end of the
saying.
day, like don't blame the player, blame the game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like that. I understand, but so for people to watch, it's exciting and stuff. But when you're thinking about it from the lens of a competitor,
Doesn't make
it
sense.
doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Would you say that you think that's the most entertaining rule set is the EBI? And I mean, I guess I wouldn't consider combat jiu-jitsu.
You know
I
what's
wouldn't.
doing very good for entertaining? I think the UFC Fight Pass.
I think so too.
The Invitational.
I think so too.
They're doing really good. Yes.
So there's been this thing going on the internet and the social media, but you know how social media is. It's a black hole of shit, right? And a lot of people were talking about how we have black belts that don't really deserve their black belts, right? And at the end of the day, if somebody earned their black belt, I mean, they did put in their time and effort into it. Do you think that to get to the black level, do you really need to compete and just constantly go to these competitions and do this and try to prove your name to get your black belt? Or it's just the time on the mat that you put in, the knowledge that you gather, and you can teach the newer generation? How do you think, do you think that's all like called for or not really?
Okay. Oh, so I think, yes, I think you need to compete. Is it like a must? If you're not competing, not legit? No. But I think that competition will expose yourself, will expose your mistakes, will show you what's working, what is not working, what you need to like. It will expose your weakness. It put you in a very vulnerable position, and then you have to really try a technique when someone is doing the best effort to defend that, to fight against that. Someone also want to win that medal as bad as you. So I think there's something to be said about that. Now, I don't think that you need to go and like you need to be a world champion to be a legit black belt. Absolutely not. I think it's more of like a personal challenge. It's something that since we're in martial arts, I take that like that. I think like it's about challenging yourself, getting out of the comfortable zone, and just putting yourself out there and finding out about your game, finding out about what you need to fix from your game, what's working, what's not working. And it's rewarding to win and stuff, but I think there's a bigger thing that you get from the tournament. I always think like after tournament you come back to the gym, you're better. You're already better. You get to see the timing. Even like when you go to compete, you go back. That probably happened when you compete. You go back and you're like, you get to understand things a little more. That
Yeah,
that starts
he showed
clicking
the
now because I
gaps.
went to the tournament and I saw how that really works in a real situation. So yes, I think I would say like at least once or twice per belt minimum you should compete. But I don't force nobody to compete. If you don't want to compete, that's not like a determining factor. Maybe that it would take longer for you to, not because you didn't compete, but it take maybe longer for you to get promoted because, like I said, competing will make you evolve faster. Not because you competed, that you know what I mean, but the outcome from the competition
I
will
know what
get
you're
you there
saying.
faster. You know,
Yeah,
so
because with that last competition I had, it almost felt like I got what was the word I'm trying to look for? I got complacent. You know, and when you go to competitions, like holy shit, I'm like a Swiss cheese, man. Like there's holes everywhere. Like let's start patching each hole one at a time. You know, and I do agree that competition does help. Even win or lose, it does help. You know, of course you wanted to win, but when I came back from that competition, I didn't feel like I deserved the win because I should have done better. You know what I mean? Like, and I think, yeah,
you did good. You did good. You're being too hard on yourself.
nah, but that was the local competition was nothing. If I'm gonna compete at a higher level, I need to be better, like
Well, it's good
10 times
have that
better.
mindset. I I mean, I'm your friend, but also as a coach, I was happy with your performance. But I'm also happy that you think like that. I think it's always good for us to like, I mean, be hard on yourself, but not too hard. Also, give yourself props because you went out there and you were way better than the guy. But it's good to have that mindset instead of just like I won. That's all I needed. Like, no, I won, but what could I have done better? Maybe I could have improved my past year. Maybe I could have finished that takedown there. You know, took his back, or like you get a feedback from it, and I think that's important to be open to that feedback. Whether you win or lose, just try to like always learn from those matches instead of just like, damn it, I lost. Some people are like they go and they compete and they lose, and all they think about is they lost. They never try to go into the process. Why did they lose? What was their technical mistake? And I think like seeing things like that are that's how you have to see it. To get better, you have to get past the ego. Really, like of course, all of us who have that. Nobody really likes to lose. I don't agree with that. Like, oh, go to win or lose. No, you're going to always go to win, of course, but you have to also at the end they put that aside and focus on the lesson that you get from the tournament. Win or lose, you always have to get the lesson. Even if you win, there's always something they can do better. You know.
That makes sense. Yeah. So with that being said, what was the competition that shaped your career the most? What was that one competition where you kind of like broke? You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, I just need to be on this track and I'll be okay.
It's hard to point one tournament. No, it's something that I would probably have to think to give you like a very precise answer. But there are many tournaments that I had that breaking point in my mind, like that level up or
Maybe,
like
maybe,
those.
maybe you could think of it as like an opponent that you maybe went
Also,
against.
there's a lot of ones like just in the black belt alone. I think I have 140 matches or something. So
Because
it's
you've gone
hard to.
against the greats, right? Like you've gone against Dean Lister, Bushesha, like Gary Tone and
Man, I
Mickey
say if I
Rod,
didn't if I didn't compete against the greatest, all the greatest, at
Gordon.
least I train. If I didn't compete, at least I train with them as well. So yeah, I feel very blessed to be able to face all those great names because I every time you go there and I become better as a competitor. I get out of the match as a better fighter. And all those guys push me to be a better fighter, to be a better person, work more on myself, to get my shit together. You know, especially is the one that I lost, like you said, Gordon Ryan. So, uh, there honestly, it sounds cliche, but there are good feedback from everybody. Like I got good lessons from a lot of matches, a lot of tough names, and there are people that are stronger doing something. There are people that are very strong doing other things. Maybe one of those guys that are really good on some specific thing. When you put them in another situation, they're very weak, and the other guy is strong in the very opposite thing. So it's very subjective answer for me to give you. It would be unfair almost.
Yeah, gotcha. So now that you've moved to Florida, you've taken over new challenges, right? And one of the challenges is you are the head coach, and two of the big jiu-jitsu schools that are basically established in this area. I don't think anyone even comes close to the level of the school that there is. What was probably the hardest transition? What was the thing the hardest to transition? Was there something that was hard when you were like just a new challenge, head first?
In Florida, or
Yeah, just in general. It doesn't have to be in Florida.
like from, you mean from like being start to coaching, or
Yeah, yeah.
the transition from competitor to coaching? Man, I was just talking to Ami about that today. Um, Coaching and being a competitor and being a coach are completely opposite things. Uh, my coach, Coach Kayotera, he always said that a lot, and it's very true. When you're a competitor, you have to be selfish. You have to put yourself first. You have to sleep when it's good for you. You have to eat what's good for you. You have to say no to many things because you have to think about winning, and you have to be thinking about yourself and what's best for you. Being the coach is the completely opposite. You have to be selfless. You have to be there for the people, and you have to be there to help them to be the best they can be. I think that's what is a good coach. Like, it's not just about making champions, but sometimes you see someone that is walking in shy, or maybe they're overweight, or maybe they're being bullied, and you see them overcoming those obstacles. I think you're doing a good job as a coach. And you cannot do that if you're a selfish person, if you're just thinking about yourself. What I find the hardest is when I'm doing both at the same time. So me, like if I go to compete, I like to take 4 or 5 weeks where I can coach, but a lot less. I'm mostly focused on training. And then when I'm coaching, I like to be 100% focused on that, because then I can be my best self coach, and I can give a good experience. And it's hard sometimes. You're fighting against someone high level. You have to train 2-3 times a day, cut weight, and then you're sore, you're tired, you start getting close to tournament, you're grumpy. Of course, those things don't go along with being a coach, you know, and there's a conflict there. So to me, what I learned is about it's like when, like, separate those things, I'm gonna compete, okay, start coaching a little less or do a certain amount of class. There's good that I can keep my quality up, and I can be present, I can be selfless in that moment, but not so much that it's going to drain my energy that when I have to be selfish and focus on myself, I'm going to be drained. So it's finding that balance. It's what's hard. And there's a lot of guys that are very experienced competitors. They're very well-known competitors, and they're terrible coaches. And a lot of them will say that because they don't have that quality of, like, they don't
know how to be
really
selfless.
want to care about people's progress. I find joy. I honestly do. Whether it's like someone that had no talent to be a champion, or is like an introvert person, goes there and win, and you see that person, it's like discovering about themselves. They're finding out the potential that they have. You see that it's priceless, or you show a move to someone and you see them doing your signature move in a tournament and hitting that. That's like, to me, I find a lot of joy on that. And among other things, that's like, that makes me like excited to go to teach in the gym. I look forward to it. I look forward to build up champions, to help people to get in shape, to build up their confidence, to make them a better student in school, help their confidence, help them in life, not just in jiu-jitsu or in competition. I think I find a lot of joy in that.
That's cool. So another thing, what do you find? What mistakes do you find that people continuously make, and what's the hardest thing to overcome? Or even in your own career, what was the one thing that you found very hard to overcome? A mistake that you were doing, but you did. It doesn't have to be about you. It could be just in general about the general populace.
A mistake? Repeat.
So like, what one common mistake you see being made in BJJ?
There are many mistakes. uh, Technical or
Whatever you think is more important for somebody to become a better competitor or better jiu-jitsu practitioner, not even a
Okay,
competitor?
because I think like at every stage of jiu-jitsu there will be a different advice, right? So let's say beginners. Let's focus on beginners. People that are on like month 1 to month 10 or 12 even, depending on where they are. So I think that one mistake they do is to try to compete too early in training, right? There's a few guys at the gym that I'm trying to change that they're athletic, they're strong, but they don't have enough technique and they're competing. And it's good because I'm at the same time I'm trying to teach about the score, points, don't do this in the tournament and stuff, but you wanna keep your mind open in the gym and you wanna be able to try things. And if you're just thinking about winning this sparring session, you're not gonna try to develop new skill sets because you're gonna be afraid that if you try to do that and you fail, you're gonna lose the round and then you're gonna slow down. So I think like have an open mind and try, like you can be, for example, you say you like gonna have 5 rounds, be competitive in 3 rounds, take 2 rounds to, of course you're gonna win you want to win the train, but try to set a goal. Okay, I'm not a good guard player, I'm gonna put myself on bottom and he cannot pass my guard. All right, I don't play De La Riva. I'm gonna try to work on De La Riva. I have to get at least one sweep on De La Riva. In the 5 rows, I have to get one sweep. Set goals, and not just go like through the motion, trying to do what you always know how to do. Especially if you're beginning, if you start off with some athletic base, that's good and bad. It's bad because when you start off and you have no athletic athletic skills, you have to rely more on technique. You have to learn the technique because you can't count on strength, flexibility, and this and this and that. When you come to jiu-jitsu and you already come from maybe another sport, and you have a athletic background, you're spoiled in a way, but that's like makes you, like, when you go train, you can overpower people, you can use strength, and then you don't have to really focus on the technique as much as a guy who doesn't have that. So the a good combination would be a guy that is extremely athletic but have an open mind to try to work on things that he's not good at in the gym. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yes,
It
yes,
does
it
make
does.
sense.
Yeah.
Yep. So one more question: who are some up and coming grapplers or fighters you're excited about?
Up and coming grapplers and fighters. Little Carson from the gym.
Yeah, he's good, man. He's this 14-year-old kid, man. Just two
It's
months in.
only 2 stripes, but I think, yeah, if he keeps on doing that, he's a beginner, but he won his first tournament in like a few weeks, and I think in the future he's gonna have a very good future if he stays on the track. But right now, people that are already competing and stuff, that's what you mean. Okay, so um, up and coming competitors.
Because Worlds just happened, right? And well, let me ask you this: in the Worlds,
I like that João guy that won against me, huh? I met him like a long time ago. He's always been very humble, very hard worker. João Bisnaga, I think his nickname is Bisnaga.
can you pull him up, Miggy?
He just won on the featherweight
What's his
division. Joao João, and I think his nickname is Bisnaga. BIS. Yeah,
And what's his last name?
nickname is Bisnaga. I think it's BISNAGA. Yeah, Pyramid Worlds. I won there. You see, he just won against a very tough guy, and man, this guy worked very hard. I met him a long time in 2019 before an ACB event in Long Beach, and he was still like nobody as far as like being known in jiu-jitsu and stuff. I met him through a friend of mine, but I saw the guy was always dedicated, always on his mission. So it's cool to see he win, because for a lot of people you see, oh, maybe the guy came out of nowhere, but I follow him a long time on Instagram, and you see that he's always training. He made a post about I failed many times and stuff. It took like so many years, so he was a good. That was a guy that I liked to watch winning. He's a hard worker guy, but to be honest, man, I didn't watch a lot of matches on IBJJF rules. I think that the gi rules are becoming a little bit at the IBJJF. their gear rules are becoming a little bit nonsense. Like you stop and you go to the camera and you have to check the camera and then you go back like minutes later. People already cool down. Like like you know what I'm
What are
talking
they
about.
checking for in the camera?
Sometimes was there an advantage? There was there an advantage. I'll pause. Let's watch on the camera. Come back. It's becoming too much.
Like soccer, man. But in soccer, it's just
Yeah, but it's probably faster in soccer.
They're taking their time.
Taking the time. A lot of things in jiu-jitsu is the momentum. You're fighting. You're getting the guy tired. You get on top. You exhausting the guy on bottom. Boom, you get the pass. Well, if you get on top and they pause and they give 2 minutes, now the guy on bottom is already recovered. So I think things like that are making it annoying. And also like the lapel, like there's a lot of like they should be more severe. I think with penalties for people that are just like holding the gi, like holding the lapel, holding the collar, not trying to actively sweep.
kind of
or
like what
something.
judo has, like that 4 second rule. If you go on the
Yeah,
outside,
maybe a little bit longer, but yeah, something. There should be something, but that's why I didn't watch a whole lot of that. Which is my bad. I always end up going back and looking matches and studying stuff, but I didn't watch it live. But there are a lot of very good guys. Like there are a lot of guys that are like, I'm not gonna say they're up and coming because I'm not paying attention now as a coach, as a full-time coach. I'm gonna be observing the brown belts and stuff more because eventually I'm gonna have students that are gonna fight those guys and have to pay more attention. But I'm more for as a person who watches this sport and stuff. Usually I'm watching mostly the people that are competing already in the black belt and stuff. And there's like that guy Eric Muniz is very good. He's a big guy. He usually fights, I think, ultra heavyweight or super heavyweight. He's very good in the gi. And then in no gi you have a lot of. It's like that's another thing too. I am still from the generation when I got in the black belt. I was doing gi and no gi in a high level, and at that time, everybody that was good in the gi was everybody that was good in no gi. There was the same people. People that would win worlds no gi, worlds. They would go to ADCC. They would win ADCC, and now it became two different sports.
it's a different animal now.
Yeah, now you have guys that just win no gi because the rules start becoming more specific, and then next thing you know, it's a completely different sport. It changed so much. It changed more, for example, than if you look soccer in the field, in the grass field, and a soccer indoor. It's a lot more similar than gi and no gi, for example.
Right.
And those are different sports. There are things that differentiate enough for you to make some player that is really good in one modality. So no gi and gi, it's even more distant, right? There's like several more guards you can do with a gi. Several more passes you can do in the gi. Several more chokes you can do with the gi. So takedowns, and so on.
So what do you think also about the sport evolving? Because this last CJI, where one of the brothers, one of the guys with the curly hair, what's his name? The brothers.
Rotolo brothers.
Rotolo brothers.
Rotolo brothers.
He was going against that Australian guy that was like a ringer, and the Australian guy was doing the K guard, which is pretty new.
Josh
right?
Hinger. Oh no, wait, Hinger? Which Hinger?
I don't know.
No.
Hinger?
No.
Because
He's talking about the Australian kid with the dyed hair,
Dyed
short.
blonde hair, short. Yeah, he was doing that K guard, and Rotolo brother was having hard time
Oh, is
going
that
around.
the? Oh fuck! What's his name? I forgot. I know who you're talking about. The guy that trains in New York. He's Australian, but he trains with the Unity.
I don't
Levi
know.
Jones Leary.
Levi.
Yeah. What do you think with the sport evolving and they're coming up with the new guards and new things that nobody's seen and
Man, I think it's great because jiu-jitsu always going to change. Look, when I got in the black belt, that's when they started 50-50. Oh my God, 50-50 is such a boring position. Stall. Now, you don't see people really stalling 50-50 anymore because people learn enough about it. There's so many attacks from there. There's so many ways to get out of there. You evolve with it. So I think it's cool to let the sport evolve and see where it goes and more things come up. I think that's always been the case, In the 90s, most of the guards that you're playing now didn't exist in the early 90s, most of them. And, once people start becoming good in one guard, someone had to study that because they wanted to be that guy. So that someone also become good passing that guard. then you need to get another guard, and that's how it evolves. So I think it's always gonna be like that. But I think there's some things like some positions they shouldn't ban it, but they should give it a time for people to
Work.
work. Eventually, if it becomes a position there, like it's easy to figure out to get out, and people are not stuck in there, then you can like let it go of that rule. But I think like that could be something that would make it more exciting. Back to that topic, would make it more exciting. You know, like sometimes they're just holding without the intention to sweep, attack the back, or go for submission. So the purpose should always be to go forward, to advance position, to not just to hold it there. So
Yeah.
it's my.
All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up for tonight. Getting a little late here, but yeah, thank you, Yuri.
Thanks for
I appreciate
having
it.
me.
I know
Thank
we
you,
had
Jay.
bunch of thank you. We had a bunch of more questions. I think we'd love to have you come another time whenever you can, so we
Anytime.
can finish everything up. Because I have all these questions in
Yeah.
my head.
We want,
Even though we talk almost on daily basis, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
we were talking about we wanted to talk about Brazil and stuff, but today seems like just jiu-jitsu, so we'll have to have you again.
Of course, yeah. Anytime
Yeah.
you guys want me here, I'm happy to come here. Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
brother.
Yeah, thank
All right. Alrighty, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. We will not have any episodes next week because your boy is going on vacation. I'll be gone all next week, but the week after that we'll be back. So see you.
Peace.